Welcome to Diversified Lifelong Advisors, where our mission is to have you living a life filled with wealth, health, and happiness. My name is Andrew Rosen, president of Diversified Lifelong Advisors. Today, we have a very special guest, the lovely and impressive Kim Strobel. Kim is an expert and a world-renowned coach, speaker, podcaster, and my favorite title of yours, Kim, the Chief Happiness Officer. I love it. We need one. I think we all need one in our lives. So thanks for joining me. I know we're excited, our listeners are going to be excited to listen to you.
Yeah, I'm honored to be here, Andrew. Thanks for inviting me.
My pleasure. So tell me about yourself.
Well, let me first clear up the very first adjective, or title you gave me, Chief Happiness Officer. I am that, but many times when I travel across the country and do motivational talks for businesses and organizations, they introduce me as like what you said, the Chief Happiness Officer. And so I walk onto the stage right away and I'm like, first of all, I am not like all sunshine glitters and I am not a unicorn. It's like, I am a happiness practitioner. I've studied the topic for 20 years. I know what it can do in our professional life. I know what it can do in our personal life. But like I told you before the interview, I was also on my floor last week crying, having my own meltdown. So I have a set of tools that I know that make a big difference in our life, and I try to practice them on a daily basis. But I'm a human being who has stress and challenges and struggles as well.
Right. Well, as long as you're not on here miserable, right? At least your
Yeah.
message will resonate. So what inspired you? I mean, you talked about some of your recent struggles, but what inspired you to get into the health and wellness and happiness field? And that's
It's an interesting
world.
story. I always say I think the happiness coach was kind of birthed in my soul. I can take you all the way back to, I think, growing up, and I look back now and I can see that I was definitely an anxious person and probably had some form of an anxiety disorder. I know that, when I look back in my middle school years, if my dad wasn't home by 6 p.m., I was convinced, he had died on the side of the road in a car accident. And I was always kind of this like worry wart, so to speak. But when I was in high school, participating in sports, had this vibrant personality, real outgoing. But I started having these unknown attacks that would just come on within, a half of a second. I might be sitting in the classroom, walking down the hall, driving my car home from a sports practice. And within a second or so, I would feel just completely out of my body, like the walls were closing in. I was about to lose consciousness. My body would shake all over. I knew my name, but I felt like lots of confusion about where I was, feelings of unreality. Truly, it's like the most terror-filled feeling that a person can have. And we now know that this is a condition called panic disorder. And so what ended up happening, Andrew, and it's people who don't know what panic disorder, and the best way I can describe to you, Andrew, a panic attack is if I were to put you on a train track and I said, hey, you're going to stand on this train track. You are not going to move. In fact, I've changed you to the track. And this train is coming at you at 300 miles per hour. And I promise you that train is going to stop 1 inch before it hits your nose. Do you know how you would feel? It would be the most terror frightening experience of your life, right?
Sure, for sure.
The problem is that someone like me has that feeling multiple times a day, and there's no train that's about to hit me. There's no one holding a knife to my throat. I am not almost falling off of a cliff. And so when your brain cannot logically attach a reason for these feelings, I'll be honest with you, Andrew, you start to think you're crazy,
Right.
And so from age 16 to age 24, I went undiagnosed because this was in the 80s and anxiety disorders weren't a thing. So, I quit college because I'm having panic attacks all day long. I come home to live in a safe place. I go to work as a secretary in a firm. I am silently suffering because I'm scared to death to even admit my struggle. I think that I, must be crazy, or maybe I even belong in a psychiatric center. I don't know. I just know I'm 20 years old and I can't go to Walmart by myself, or drive. I'm shaking like a leaf driving my car.
Well,
So,
Walmart is terrifying.
well, I mean, here's the
It's
deal,
not.
Andrew. I'll just be real honest with you. You never leave Walmart or Target and look up to the sky and say, thank you. That was really easy today. And what you need to know is that Kim Strobel does that now.
That's right. That's right. So, okay. So you had personal struggles, which motivated you to get into the field of
Yeah.
self-directing
So
others to find their happiness.
personal development. Yeah. So at age 24, I get a diagnosis, blah, blah, blah. I do therapy. But it is at that time that I discovered the field of personal development, the ability to overcome hard things and to create a life that feels really good to you. And so, for 20 years now, I've studied this topic. I know the research behind it. I'm also going to go ahead and say that even though my life is not perfect, Andrew, I wake up every day excited to live my life. I do every single day.
Which is an awesome feeling. I think all of us strive for it. So let's go there for a minute, because you touched on something that resonates with me. I mean, our mission as a firm is to help our clients uncover their goals and achieve their ultimate and true happiness. So this is right up my alley. My pulpit just is financial planning. But you spoke both before we were chatting here in front of everyone and a moment ago, as far as the science behind it. So I last year in my own journey started watching the at Yale University, a fabulous professor there,
Dr.
Lori
Laurie Santos.
Santos, yep, came out with the Happiness Lab, which is the most downloadable course in the world and was fascinating. And there's actual science behind this. So what in your research, your studies, which is very progressive, I mean, 20 years of this is fascinating, dedicated to this field. Tell us the actual science behind happiness.
Yeah.
Right? It's a
Well,
form.
yeah. And the research that I've studied under comes from, Sean Aker, who is a Harvard University positive psychology professor who does the same kind of work that I do in corporations, because, he's really got the vetted research. And so I follow him and Sonia Lubermisky. And here's the research. The research says that all of us have what's called a set baseline happiness level. So, Andrew, perhaps your set baseline happiness level is here, and maybe my set baseline happiness level is here. And this is the default that we will come back to over and over again in our lives, which means, Andrew, that you and I get a better job, we make more money, we get a bigger house, whatever it is, our happiness level will go up for a very short period of time. And then it will always reset back to your default. Now, what's interesting about this, Andrew, is the same is true for when we endure difficulties in life. The brain research is really strong that you and I can endure loss, grief, divorce, illness,
Tragedy,
hard things, COVID, okay? We can endure really hard things, but almost every single one of us will return to our default in a matter of time. And I'm not going to lie, because I'm a straight up girl. And here's the deal, Andrew. Sometimes I fight a little bit with the science, because I'm like, wait a minute. Like, there are just some things that I think could happen to me that I would never recover from, right? Like, there's just some things you feel like, I don't think I could recover from that.
Sure.
But then when you ask yourself this question, Andrew, do you know people in your life who have had really awful things, endured really terrible atrocities? Because I do. And kind of a somewhat famous person that I always think of is Elie Wiesel, right? Who lived in the concentration camp, who I believe his pregnant wife was killed in the concentration camp, his mother, his father. He endured
wrote Darkness, right?
he endured terrible atrocities, but he went on to live this very meaning-filled, joy-filled life. And so the research, when you look around, and you see people who are doing the same thing, our brains are kind of resilient in a way. And most of the time, if we let them, they will return to default.
So, okay. So how do we, or is it possible through coaching to adjust the default? Right.
Yes.
Is that the
Yeah.
science? Is that what the
Yeah.
work that's being done?
So many times people are like, well, where does my baseline come from? Like, why am I an 8 and Andrew's a 6 or whatever, right? So if you think of your happiness as a pie chart, what we know is that 50% of your long-term happiness is genetic, which means it comes from your mom or your dad or a mixture of both. And sometimes when I tell people this, the whole crowd will like hang their head and they'll be like, I'm so screwed.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But there's a genetic tendency to this, right? We either inherit a brain that seems to always be scanning and picking out the good, or we inherit a brain that is a little more negatively based. And so 50% is genetic. Now, here's where I think the shocking stats come. Only 10% of your long-term happiness, Andrew, comes from your external circumstances.
Okay.
Now, what do I mean by an external circumstance? I mean, are you married, single, divorced, or widowed?
Right.
Do you
Job.
have kids?
Right.
Do you not have kids? Do you make 5 million or do you make 50,000? Do you live in a 6,000 square foot home or a 2,000 square foot home? These
Yeah.
are external circumstances, right? What kind of job you have, what kind of car you drive, what kind of home you live in. They are only contributing this teeny tiny sliver of long-term happiness. Yet you, me, and every other person are putting all of our eggs in that basket.
Yeah, no, I love that. I even read a study, it was a couple years ago, so maybe it's slightly adjusted for inflation, where that the optimal happiness income was something like
It
$73,000,
is. Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
people think of that as not much or a lot. I mean, but certainly not what we aspire, most of us aspire to think of as wealthy and would lead to our happiness. So, okay, I'm going to
Okay.
wow you and all our listeners with my impressive math. So 50% of our happiness, you're
Genetic.
SOL, right? You're
Yep.
just born with it. 10%, you probably have some level of control over its job, it's external. That leaves 40%. See that?
Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
that with
You're
my
good.
fingers and toes. 40% left over that I'm guessing is where you spend the most of your work.
It is. So
Tell
that's
me
the
about
part
that.
that excites me the most, Andrew. That's the part that I've studied for the last 20 years. Like, regardless of your genetics, regardless of your external circumstances, every human being has the ability to increase their happiness levels by up to 40%. And that 40%, Andrew, is comprised of three things. It's your thoughts, your
Okay.
behaviors,
Okay.
and your actions. Thoughts, behaviors, and actions.
Okay. So give me an example if you could.
I sure can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on each of the three, how working with a happiness coach or just changing your outset can affect those three areas. So your
Okay.
thoughts, your behaviors, and your actions.
Right. And I before I even get into that, I want to go back because I also love that you are focused on wealth. And there's nothing wrong with building our wealth. I want wealth, Andrew. There's a lot of stuff I want to do in the world. So we're not saying it's bad to want money. I
Right.
want lots of money. You
I
want
got
lots
a
of
guy
money.
for you. I got a
You're
guy for you.
Yeah, yeah, good. You know someone, right? He can do it. Let's build that wealth.
I know a guy
Yeah.
who knows a guy. You're in luck.
Right.
But go
So
on.
we're
So,
not saying there's anything wrong with that. We're just saying, let's make sure that you're intentionally placing your focus on the things that are really going to give you those long-term effects, because this affects everything in our lives, from our bottom line business. I mean, we know that a positive brain is 31% more productive than a brain that's negative, neutral, or stressed.
right.
That
Right.
comes from
Yeah.
Sean Aker, right? We know that when we put your happiness at the forefront, when we come into to schools, organizations, and corporations, and we put your happiness at the forefront, we know that your employees are going to have a 56% increase in greater sales. They're going to be 3 times more creative. They're going to be 6 times more engaged in their job.
Right.
So this idea of like not putting happiness to the forefront is kind of an outdated belief system, which is why we now know that our mental and emotional well-being, our wholeness, which is what you're striving for, is very important. This is the work to be done in our businesses, in our personal lives.
It makes
You know?
sense. It's intuitive when you think about it,
It
right?
is. Yeah. Yeah. So let me share one little tip because I know we're limited for time. I'm going to give you there's 5 top research-based happiness habits I think that come from a mixture of Sean Aker and Sonia Luber-Missy. But I want to give your people one because it's a game changer, okay?
All
Because I
right.
can talk about this all day long. All right. So here's the deal. The average human being has about 70,000 thoughts a day.
You're over
70,000
you're
thoughts.
overestimating my intellect, but I'm probably bring it down.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
just people
yeah,
like you
yeah,
that
yeah. And if you're super stressed, you're having 120,000 or so. And if you're pretty zen, you're having like 50,000.
right.
So,
I calculate about 6 thoughts a day I have.
yeah, yeah. So, what we know is that for the average human being, which most of us are average human beings, we know that 80% of those thoughts are negative in a day's time,
That's crazy.
which means that most of us are going around and we're having about 56,000 negative thoughts a day, but we're not aware of them because they're happening at the subconscious level. So we're not even aware of these negative thoughts, right? A lot of the time.
Sure. I would imagine that's a lot. That's a lot of water dripping on a
Yeah.
stone.
Yeah. And so there's a reason for that, right? Back in archaic times, back in caveman times, we have the amygdala, which is this little pea-sized thing in our brain. And the amygdala's job was to constantly scan our environment for danger. So in caveman times, it kept us safe. Like it wasn't like look around and see all that's great. It was like, is there food tonight? Is there water? Is there a storm that's going to completely wipe out our clan? Is there a saber-toothed lion or tiger coming at me? Like the brain was trying to protect itself. And the way that it did that, Andrew, is it scanned the environment for danger all of the time.
Right. It's fight or flight. It's
You got it.
you
You
know,
got it.
and it's interesting when I sort of transpose that to my world, I see the same thing happen when it comes to investing in financial decisions. Last year was a great example under COVID. Is you see very intelligent individuals make very poor financial decisions because their amygdala, their brain is telling them run, 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 run,
You got it.
be scared. And it gets it, and our job is to try to calm that. I mean, that's one of the roles we have in people's lives, but sometimes that fear overrides common and
Rational,
rational
logical
thought.
thought. Absolutely. The amygdala actually shuts down the prefrontal cortex of the brain so that you're not making a decision logically. You're making it out of this emotionally based reaction. And in your job, Andrew, a lot of what your clients experience, I'm sure it's like your job is to control the emotional reaction that they're having to the stock market or their investments.
Oh yeah, there's been a big trend in my industry of behavioral finance, and that's one of the biggest uh, additive features that a financial planner brings to the table. So okay, but
Okay. Yeah.
let's not lose our train of thought completely. So 56,000 negative thoughts out of 70,000, or for people like me, that's 5 out of 6 uh, thoughts in my day are negative. How do I fix that?
Okay.
That's a lot to
Well,
overcome.
let me throw one more stat out there because 95% of the 80% of negative thoughts that you're having are the exact same negative thoughts you had the day before.
Okay.
Okay. So, what this means is that in your brain is full of all of these roadways. And whatever roadway your brain travels the most is the one that gets the most ingrained. So, if I'm a woman and I am constantly telling myself, I hate my body, I don't like the way I look, I'm overweight, that is a really ingrained road in my brain, which means the next time that thought comes around, it's going to go down that road again because it's so well trained. So, how do we fix this? Here's how. It's one of the top 5 happiness habits. It's a simple concept. It takes 2 minutes a day. I'm telling you, it is the one thing that will change your life. And it's the simple practice of gratitude.
Yeah.
Here's what we know. If you write down, and the research says you got to put pen to paper, it's not enough just to say it. If you write down 3 different things that you're thankful for every day, for 21 days, you create a new neural feedback loop in your brain, Andrew, and you become more optimistic, which means your brain starts to scan its environment for more good than bad. And that positive brain is going to make you 31% more productive, 3 times more creative, 6 times more highly engaged. It's a simple 2-minute practice. I have never had a client yet who said that this practice within their business, within their organization, or in their personal life has not had a tremendous effect on their well-being and happiness levels.
Can it be the same three every day?
Nope, three different.
But can you
Three different.
repeat? Can you
Yeah.
ever repeat them?
Yeah, well, probably, yeah, eventually. So like I
Okay.
do 10 every day because I don't know, I'm this weird girl. So every day I write down 10 things, but like these don't have to be profound. Like I'm right now, I'm like, I'm thankful that the grass is starting to turn green. I'm thankful that I have a McDonald's Diet Coke. I'm thankful that I have this desk with this beautiful office to work in. I'm thankful that I laid on the
Got it.
couch a while ago and my dog snuggled with me. Like
Okay.
they don't have to be like a profound thing. It's actually bringing it to the most basic things, right? Like I'm thankful that I have a eyes that can see you,
Right.
right? Yeah.
It's right. I mean, it makes all the sense in the world to me. I've said before, if I could bottle up that feeling that cancer survivors and patients go through, where they actually, you hear it all the time. I'm thankful for the smallest things. I had a friend who went through cancer in his 20s, and he's looking at things fantastically, and I'm presumably
Yeah.
a better spot in my life because I don't have this potentially deadly disease, and I can't have that same optimism. Why do you have to go through darkness to see the light, right?
Yes.
So, okay, so I know we don't have the time to do deep dive into all five, but might as well rattle them off because I when I did the happiness lab, same thing. Gratitude was one of those pillars. Rattle off for me the five pillars
Okay.
to happiness.
Okay. So now you're putting me on the spot, right? But exercise. So
Okay.
exercise 30 minutes a day is a game changer. Move your body in some way, walk, yoga, dance, stretch, whatever it is. Of course, gratitude.
Yeah.
And then random acts of kindness, Andrew.
Okay.
This
I,
idea of like, just a nice little note, a nice little email, a nice little thank you to the Target cashier who checked you out, super fast today. And then meditation.
yeah, which I've
And
adapted into my life recently.
yeah. And then, there's sometimes there's a little bit variance on the fifth one, but like journaling, just journaling positive experiences for 2 minutes a day, like journaling the positive things that you've experienced is super, super helpful. It really does change the brain.
Awesome. Awesome. That's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, okay.
Andrew, I can give your clients, we made like a little like gratitude starter. It's like a 3-page PDF where it teaches you the research behind gratitude. And then it helps give you some prompts for looking at gratitude in your life. And then it comes with like a 21-day tracker. So you can just track your
Oh,
gratitude. Would you guys like that? I'm happy
home
to
run.
send that over.
Yeah, send that anything you think is worthwhile because anytime I do these, I get a lot of people responding
Yeah.
to positive things, and I'm sure that now that you mention it, I'm going to get a lot of requests for it. So
Yeah.
absolutely,
Send it
absolutely.
over. Sure.
Okay, so so you are a chief happiness officer, which is I think it's like my favorite title ever. So how does that work? So I want to hire a chief happiness officer. What does that engagement look like? What is how do you actually help people? Is it focused on these five things? Is it hold accountable? Give me the the elevator pitch to how that works.
Okay. So there's a couple of different ways. Sometimes businesses or organizations hire me to come in and I'll do, a 60-minute keynote, which is really just like, let's get everybody fired up. Let's give them some of the research. Let's let them walk away with one happiness habit. Let's just kind of build this foundational, like, wow, I didn't know this research. I'm walking away. I feel uplifted. I feel motivated. So a lot of my work is spent on a stage or giving, in an office, giving like a presentation. But then some companies will actually hire us to come in and do, full day trainings where we are actually walking them through the positive psychology of how do we really kind of take control of our life? How do we get off this hamster wheel, this rat race that is not working? And a lot of companies do that because they are starting to understand that their employee well-being is truly going to affect their bottom line, in engagement levels, in creativity, and the ability to see problems to solutions, the ability for people to actually be able to go back and reclaim happiness in their personal lives. I mean, we are all like chasing things so much of the time that we're not really always knowing how to even step out of the chaos of it. So yeah, we train them on positive psychology. We give them the tools and the strategies that are going to make a difference in their daily lives, both at work and at home. So a lot of companies will hire us for multi-day trainings where we're actually trying to create a climate and a culture with this foundation of happiness and wellness. Because that's what we know really leads to success.
Okay. So, and you do both companies and individuals. So I
Yeah,
can
yeah. So
I can
I
do it
have like,
personally as well.
yeah, I do schools, I do businesses, we do corporate work. I run a 90-day online women's coaching program that is specifically for women. I've got a lot of these different kind of
Sure.
versions of Kim Strobel going on. Yeah.
Okay. And it's a loaded question, but you've seen people go from here to here. Like you've seen
It's it's
at the corporate.
unbelievable.
It's an
It
awesome
really is. And
transformation.
I'll tell you, Andrew, some people start to notice a difference right away, and then others, it's almost like I tell people where it takes time. So it's like we're coming in and we're planting like a different field of soil within the organization. And that takes time to actually bring people along, to teach them the skills, to help them create accountability systems within the organization that guides them towards their value systems, that guides them towards the types of relationships and how they want people to feel both at work but also in their home life. And so it can vary. Sometimes I go into women-led organizations where it's like, hey, I've got ambitious women in here who they're like, I don't know how to like have a full-time career and raise my kids at the same time. And then, raise my kids as I'm supposed to be, and also be this ambitious career
Right.
woman. And so it's like, I think that people are really searching for something that is actually going to make a difference in their life. And so they're really open to it. I always laugh. I'm like, if you would have introduced me as the chief happiness officer 10 years ago, Andrew, people would have been like, have you lost your mind,
Uh,
Andrew? Uh,
but it's awesome. That's the beauty of life,
yeah,
right?
it's
You
it's
create
it's
yourself.
not frivolous.
No,
Going after and intentionally creating happiness in your life. It is not frivolous. It is your right to claim that.
I love it. I love it. So my mission is to help people improve their wealth, their health, their happiness. How do you believe your work helps in any or all of those ways? How can your chief happiness officer affect them? And it doesn't have to be all three.
Yeah, I think it is all three. And I'll tell you why. So we know from the research again that when we bring your happiness to the forefront, because it opens your mind up to so much more possibility, that people many times who have their happiness at the forefront all of a sudden begin generating a whole lot more income. And I'll just tell you from my own personal experience, Andrew, when I brought my happiness to the forefront, I mean, I was a school teacher. So, you know, it has changed my ability to create wealth. It has changed my ability to cope with hard things. It has changed my ability to create more grit and resiliency in my life. And again, we have to be careful because this is not toxic positivity. This is not where we go around to our employees and we say, now, Andrew, just focus on all that's good. Just be positive. That doesn't work. Okay. You're allowed to feel your feelings. You have to go there. But then what we want to show you is that you have a reservoir, you have a set of skills that you can learn that are going to constantly make you more productive, more creative, the ability to draw more abundance in your life, the ability to feel engaged. I mean, Andrew, people are more depressed today than they were 50 years ago before they had modern conveniences. you
and
know?
wealth is higher today. And I have to imagine intuitively after this pandemic and COVID, you're going to see I mean, you will be a good client. Your business is going to go through the roof. I mean,
Yeah,
the
well,
haven't just
I'm
like
happy to
fun.
hear that because, as someone who spends 75% of her time on the stage, I've been hit pretty hard.
Sure.
But, we just to give you one more, I'm kind of brainy, nerdy in this way, but 25% of job success, Andrew, is predicted by IQ. 75% of job success is predicted by optimistic levels, by social support systems within the organization, and by your ability to see stress as a challenge and not as a threat.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, maybe I can do some of that 75% since
I think
the
so.
IQ is we can all agree is lacking. So, all right. I always end my interviews with two critical questions. One is right up your alley. What makes you happy, Kim?
I'll tell you what made me happy today. So I have she'll turn 97 next week, a 97-year-old grandmother who has taught me immensely about happiness. And she and I have had a standing lunch date for 20 years. Every Friday, Graham and I have a lunch date. But 4 weeks ago, she got put in the nursing home, which has been really hard. But this morning, I took her some cookies and talked to her outside the nursing home window and watched her face just light up. And I walked away and I thought that right there, that has made my day.
That's powerful stuff. That's awesome. All right. So 97-year-old Graham, she
Yep.
makes you happy. My last question for you before I we can share all your ways to get in touch with you is you've shared a lot of great tips, a lot of great stats, and I appreciate you sending me along anything you have that I can distribute or share in
Yeah.
my platforms because I know there will be demand for it. Is what is the one tip, message, thing you want to leave uh, for our readers, listeners to remember from Kim Strobel?
I think I think we're all really hard on ourselves. The inner critic inside of us is strong. And I think that we forget to give ourselves some grace.
That's
And
awesome.
so,
56,000
yeah.
strong, right?
Yeah. So just knowing that, you have the permission to just take a breath and quit being so hard on yourself and just give yourself some damn grace, Andrew.
Oh, amen, sister. Amen. So thank you, Kim. This is right up my alley, right up my passion. I can't wait to I've already friended you. I want to keep following the stuff you're doing and find ways to continue engaging with you. Tell our fine listeners today how they can learn more, get in touch, follow you. I know you have your website, kimstrobel.com, but you share it and then I can do
Yeah. Yeah. So I have kimstrobel.com. And then I also have at strobeleducation.com. And both of them can be for corporate wellness. The education one is also for schools and so forth. But yeah, so kimstrobel.com, strobeleducation.com, and then, of course, Kim Sablehouse Strobel on Facebook, and then Kim Strobel Joy on Instagram. And I have a podcast. Andrew, did you know I had a podcast?
I did. Remember, I introduced you as a
Did you?
renowned coach, speaker, podcaster, and chief.
Yeah. Talk about being super scared to launch that baby. But yeah, my podcast is She Finds Joy.
Awesome. And we'll share all that stuff when we share this video. As always, it's been a real pleasure, Kim. I know our listeners will totally enjoy this as much as I have. And please, everyone watching, share this with anyone that you think will appreciate it. As always, I am Andrew Rosen. Stay healthy, stay wealthy, and as Kim would say, and I, stay happy.
Stay happy.
Thanks.